everybody. Welcome back to the Silver Lyming. As you know, my name is Anne Desjardins. I'm your host and just so grateful to be here to bring you this podcast to help spread information and general understanding of Lyme and tick-borne illness, as well as to give you some hope. Because I remember specifically as I was going through my own journey with this, again, it took me 7 years to get a diagnosis, another 7 years to fix myself, how dark and lonely and isolating that space can become when you're living that with an unknown issue, right? Like, deep down systemically inside of you that there's something wrong. And unfortunately, medical doctors are not acknowledging that that is a legitimate thing. And they pin it on things like stress or depression, or you're an overly emotional female. For those of you who are my female listeners, you'll appreciate that one. Or it's something at your age. I was given all these varieties of answers for what was really going on deep down inside of me. And I knew that was not the right fit. And I even was diagnosed with narcolepsy at one point in time, which I also knew that wasn't correct because the shift sleep disorder stimulant that they prescribed for me didn't touch the fatigue. And I kept asking how long it would take for that to take effect. And they said it should have been immediate, that there's obviously then something else going on. And I was told to change my lifestyle. And I'm really grateful that I did. It led me down a road that I never would have embarked on had I not gone through what I did. But immediately I began changing things like my laundry detergent. I started to embrace meditation. I changed some of my nutritional intake plan. I did my best to get proper sleep, like all of these things that you can do naturally to mitigate stress. And I would remember being at the vitamin shop begging those people for help with different supplements that would potentially help me with my fatigue. That was one of my main initial complaints. And ultimately, in the end, I really found a lot of relief through herbs, through Ayurveda, hot yoga, just different things that I could do that were probably not mainstream medical help. But I again found tremendous benefit in it, so much so that I went back to school to become an Ayurvedic practitioner. And I really value what Eastern medicine can do for us and the power of herbs. And my guest today is somebody who is also in this vein of thought, and I'm really excited to share more with you about her. So today I have Dr. Alice Honican with me, and she is a doctor of naturopathy and a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, a licensed acupuncturist, and a bioenergetic practitioner at Longevity Health Center in Roswell, Georgia. And again, these are things that are near and dear to my heart that I really found made an impact on my health journey. And so many people ask me, how did you get better? And I'm like, well, how long do you have? Basically now become a walk-in encyclopedia for a variety of energetic workings that we can do for ourselves that will help. And I always feel like I know so much, and then it's like, no, you know nothing. There is so much more to learn. And so again, I just really appreciate her desire to educate herself better on these things. She has her bachelor's degree of science in psychology from the University of Georgia, and then she continued to receive her master's degree in acupuncture from the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine in San Diego, California. And she's nationally certified in both acupuncture and Chinese herbology and licensed in the state of Georgia. And then she subsequently earned her doctorate in traditional naturopathy, completing her dissertation on chronic Lyme disease, which of course is going to be of great value to my listeners today. And just your background itself lends well, I think, for you to have the mind that you do and the appreciation that you do for naturopathy. And so her father was somebody who also was one of the very first Lyme literate holistic practitioners in the state of Georgia. And I myself am a daughter of a physician, and I just know how much being exposed to that really had an impact on me, whether it was directly or indirectly. It formed part of my being, and it really made me have a greater appreciation for what we can do to help the body. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Honican. I'm again just so excited to delve into more questions that I have specifically around treatment, around how you help people, how you work with people. And again, I'll let you speak to yourself, but how did you really come into the space of being appreciative of Lyme and the need that people have for greater support?
Yeah, thanks, Anne, for having me. So my story is a little bit different in the fact that I became a Lyme literate practitioner, not because I got sick from Lyme, but because I grew up in natural medicine. So my dad, Dr. Seneca Anderson, and my mom, Kay, they started the first naturopathic practice in Georgia in 1980. So they actually met in a macrobiotic study house in the 70s. And so we grew up, we were a little kind of crunchy granola hippie kids. We weren't vaccinated. We ate, brown rice and beans and seaweed, went to the local health food store, and we were treated when we were ill with natural medicine. So when I was sick, I would go in and see my dad and he would give me homeopathics and herbals, and we didn't get sick that often. And so I knew early on I wanted to go to follow his footsteps and go into natural medicine. And so he had to kind of fight a little bit to practice natural medicine in the state of Georgia. There were a lot of politics. We still can't get licensed as naturopaths in Georgia. So he was like, you really need to go to acupuncture school and get a license to practice medicine. So I decided to do that. And I went to San Diego and studied acupuncture and herbs. And I love that. But we didn't really talk about Lyme disease too much in acupuncture school in the early 2000s in San Diego, California. So there was like, we would in Chinese medicine, you don't necessarily diagnose Lyme. Someone might come in, say, with knee pain, and you say this is due to wind cold, or this is due to toxicity in the liver, or something like that. So I learned very little about Lyme disease, but I joined the practice in about 2005. And I was sitting in with my dad, and he was testing different patients and finding spirochetes, Lyme spirochetes. And so I had a lot to learn about Lyme. And so I started attending integrative conferences with him. And we just have a very unique way of assessing the body as naturopaths.
Yes, and I would say that's partially what would many people would say has saved their life because all too often I speak to people that are like, "Oh my God, I went to 10, 15, 20 different doctors. I was not able to get a diagnosis." And then sure enough, I wound up to go see some natural doctors that my friend sent me to, and they were like, "Hey, I'm pretty sure this is what's going on with you." And sure enough, that's who ultimately gives them their diagnosis. And in fact, my past guest that I interviewed was a Western medicine trained physician and really was opposed to a naturopathic doctor and finally was at the end of his rope and he went and he was like, okay, wow, like I obviously have a lot of things to learn yet in my career. And I was grateful for him to have that exposure to understand that we all have something to give to this set of illness. Like it's not just Western medicine, it's not just Eastern medicine. I think it's ultimately everything working together in conjunction to give what we know to help people, right? That's ultimately why all people are in healthcare is to help people. They want people to be healthy and to have a good life. And to discount one from the other is probably not doing the best service. Like I know that Western medicine helped me to an extent, but then also Eastern medicine helped me a lot as well. And I wouldn't be here without both, in my opinion. I wouldn't have healed as far as I had without both. And so I think it's nice when we're able to say openly, like, yes, okay, this doctor knows so much, but there's other people like you who are more of a specialist in this and have really lived it and breathed it and studied it extensively because in medical school, they're not also talking about this. I've had numerous doctors tell me that. Like they spent maybe 20 minutes, half hour talking about Lyme disease. There's so many things to cover with the body. I can understand and appreciate that. But then we need people like you who have really become more of a specialist. And when we're looking at the body, and this is something that maybe you can help me to understand too, it's like when someone is first diagnosed with Lyme, do you look to herbs right away? Do you look to antibiotics? Is it a case by case situation? What really fits for people that way?
So as naturopaths, we only use remedies from nature. So we don't use any drugs or pharmaceuticals. And as a naturopath, I can't prescribe them anyway. So, back in 2005, if someone was coming to see a naturopath, it was their last step, not their first. So
Yeah.
becoming more popular now, naturopaths, functional medicine is becoming more popular. But back then, people were sick for a long time before they would seek out a naturopath. And we use interesting technology. So It really stems from electroacupuncture, according to Vol, where we can test different meridians of the body, see where the weaknesses are and what toxic substances are impacting the body negatively. So somebody might come in with, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, headaches, and we might find that it's Epstein-Barr virus that is impacting the body. And then we can make specific homeopathic no-sodes, detox remedies, and then herbs, things like monolaurin or cat's claw or echinacea, and then give the body the remedies that the body needs to heal. And I absolutely believe with the right tools, the body has the capacity to heal. So I was learning a little bit about Lyme spirochetes and really we were using different remedies. We were using homeopathics and things like cemento, cat's claw, and silver, argentine silver, and proteolytic enzymes. And then about a year after into my practice, my mom actually got sick. And it was very unusual for my mom to get sick. She was this healthy macrobiotic lady who, was very, very healthy. And she did remember a spider bite. And a few weeks after, I think she started to get some Bell's palsy. Her joints started to hurt. Her hip really hurt. She did see an orthopedic and they said nothing was wrong with her. And we found that she had Lyme spirochetes. So I really learned a lot from that because I thought, wow, even the healthiest person I knew could be taken down from this disease, and she could barely get out of bed. And so we started giving her remedies. And after about 6 months, she fully recovered. She did have the advantage of getting assessed right away and the natural treatments right away. But I really learned, wow, even the most healthy person, the stealth pathogen can take down, but also the body can really heal with given the right tools and the right approach. So that really hit home. And so then I became more passionate about studying Lyme disease, and I wrote my dissertation on that. And so, you asked about whether someone should use antibiotics or not. By the time someone sees me and they know they have Lyme, they've already been down that route. And so I really would prefer natural remedies. However, I did just get a call yesterday of someone who's had a fever, 103 fever for several days, was achy and tired, couldn't get out of bed, and they had been bit recently. And that was a case. I said, I want you to go to the urgent care and get on some antibiotics. This is the time for that. So there is a time for antibiotics, 100%. But I think that after that initial time, really the natural remedies are going to support the immune system, the liver, the lymph, the kidneys, the body's natural detoxification pathways. And I believe that's going to be the better approach.
Yeah. And also just doing so much less harm to the body. Because unfortunately for me, like I can look in the rearview mirror and see things that I would have done differently. But at that time, I didn't know any better and I was just doing the best I could for myself, as we all are. But I mean, I was on antibiotics for 2.5 years, and someone was like, "Oh, isn't that bad for you?" And I was like, well, I mean, yes, ultimately I had to go off them because my organs were showing signs of wear and tear, right? Like I was starting to have organ shutdown and issues because of that. And I'm like, would I do that again now? Probably not. But I was also taking herbs, and that's another question that I get asked a lot is like, can you mix antibiotics with herbs?
Yes, you absolutely can. You can do both. You can take natural remedies and you can take antibiotics and you can eat healthy. We need to do all the steps, all the tools. But after, there's, different theories, but after the initial 30 days of an infection, I think the pathogens are so stealth, they know how to hide from the immune system, that then I think that the herbs have more of a synergistic approach on the body than the antibiotic approach. And maybe I feel this way because I see so many patients that have tried that route for years and years and years. And then also I have cases where they don't know about Lyme, and that can be a little bit of a challenge because I'm not really supposed to diagnose. So what I can do is assess the body and say, what are the toxic burdens? Which organs are stressed? What are your food intolerances? What nutrients are you lacking? And if you can get all of those corrected, then I think your body can fight the Lyme. The immune system does have this amazing capacity to do what it needs to do with the right tool. So I do think for your listeners, there's a lot of hope, and that Lyme doesn't have to become your whole identity, because once you are given the answers and you change your lifestyle and have the right remedies, and you see someone like a naturopath who's really going to look for all the imbalances and do no harm, then you can get well.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I wish I was living in Georgia. I think you've got some pretty fabulous tools to help people to understand where those deficiencies lie, that they can really make up some ground quickly.
Yeah,
Um,
we have tools that we can use if you came in person, and then we have tools remote as well. So in person, I did mention the electrodermal screening, the bioenergetic testing, and we do that on every visit. And then we also use something called regulation thermography. So you may have heard about thermography for assessing the breast health, but actually
have had one done actually, yeah.
we use thermography that can actually let me know a pattern of Lyme disease.
Oh,
So this is a really interesting test because it's very reproducible. If you came in for your thermography year after year, I can really see your innate thermal pattern, like your unique individual handprint. And how this test works is we take the measurement, the temperatures of over 100 points in the body, including the teeth, the dental points, the breast, the liver, the kidneys, the colon, the small intestine, the pancreas, you name it. And then you undergo a cold challenge. And when under stress, your body should warm the head. All the blood should shunt to the head, and your head should actually warm, and the rest of your body points were cool. And so let's say we did this test and your liver heated 3 degrees. I could really see that there's a toxic liver. And there's a thermal pattern for Lyme disease when the blood will not shunt, well, your body won't shut blood to the head, and your brain points stay very cold. So many patients talk about brain fog with Lyme disease, and their brain is not getting good circulation. So there's several indicators, and my thermography report will actually flag potential Lyme disease if that's a priority. So that's another tool that we love to use to detect Lyme.
yeah, I've never heard of that before in that capacity. Again, like I've had the breast thermography done, but I've not realized that this is another area that we could utilize such a good tool in terms of a diagnostic outlook for people, because that's, I think, also another challenge for people is getting an accurate diagnosis, right? And so maybe you're getting a lot of people kind of at the end of the ropes that still haven't gotten a diagnosis. And then how would you liken the outcome or the accuracy of that regulation thermography? Like how accurate is that in comparison to, say, the Western blot or the ELISA test or more specialized tests from like IGeneX or Vibrant?
The regulation thermography can prioritize areas of stress in the body. So for somebody, their top priorities could be heavy metal toxicity or dysbiosis in the gut. And so we all have this unique thermal response with our immune system and autonomic nervous system. Somebody may be likely to get migraines and somebody else may never have had a migraine. So everyone has this unique capacity. And so the thermography will let me know what your thermal patterns, how your autonomic nervous system is functioning. So it's very accurate and unique for an individual person. It's not necessarily meant to diagnose. It's meant to say, what are the top priorities of treatment to guide me along? Is Lyme the top priority? Because it might not be. It might be working on the adrenal glands. It might be working on getting rid of the toxic heavy metals in your teeth. The mercury, one of the most toxic substances on the planet. You should go to, if you haven't gone to YouTube, you can type in smoking mercury tooth, and you can see if you just had a tooth pulled that had a silver filling, put a dry eraser to the tooth and put it under a black light, you'll see the smoke just vaping and vaping and vaping and vaping. So yeah, you should look at that. It's pretty wild. So the thermography might say working on the dental tooth with mercury toxicity is the priority. So that's the beauty of the thermography. And then we can use the bioenergetic testing to really assess the toxic burdens, Borrelia, Babesia, Bartonella. So what you would do is you would sit in front of me and you would hold on to these metal bars, and then you're connected to a circuit through a computer software where we're using homeopathic frequencies to scan your body, and it's able to tell me where the imbalances are. Is it dairy sensitivity? Is it Babesia? Is it stress to the liver? And then we can make a specific remedy. So it's not necessarily about diagnosing Lyme disease. It's where do the deficiencies lie? Where are the toxicities lie? And I believe that we all get exposed to Lyme. I know that's depressing to think about, but I believe they come from mosquitoes, and I can go out and get the mail and get a mosquito bite. So it's all about the immune system and really, having control over our bodies and doing the right things, like you mentioned, changing your detergents And if we can lower the toxic burdens, eat healthy, get rid of the chemicals, then we're better able to handle the Lyme bacteria. But sometimes we just need some extra help when it takes us down, and going to a naturopath is always a good idea because they can really assess the body. We can order labs like IGenics, Vibrant Health Wellness, and things like that. But I actually do think that the bioenergetic testing is more accurate to find the toxins.
Yeah. And curiously speaking, does that find mold when people have mold poisoning?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
any
Because
toxin.
okay. That's also another common theme that I've realized, and maybe 70% of my guests that they've had not just Lyme, but exposure to mold. And I often think about, okay, is it really the mold? Is it really the Lyme? Is it a combination of everything? I usually have a visualization of people having two buckets, basically a healthy bucket and a toxic bucket. And after so long, our standard life usually will put a lot more into the toxic bucket than we're putting back into the healthy bucket. And it eventually just bursts and the body just shuts down and is no longer capable of cleaning up the toxins anymore. And maybe it's not just specifically Lyme, maybe it's again just accumulation of people's lives and lifestyle and the things that we're exposed to and the traumas that ultimately cause the body to shut down. And so I like your approach in looking at it more from a holistic standpoint, from the entire body, the entire being, because this, I believe truly, it's not just physical disease either. There's a lot of emotional and spiritual component to that, but it's very important to understand how that being operates and what is going on specifically to them to really come up with a good path forward in terms of getting them back into wellness or the light, as I like to say, because it was in a very dark place and I'm so grateful to be back in the light. So then with those tests that or the tools that you have there, you had said potentially you can do things online. Are you able to do that virtually
Yes, you
as
could
well?
actually send in some hair and we could do an assessment using your DNA, just like you were there in person. So we did that a lot with COVID when we were shut down, and I really saw the validity of that. So we can do the bioenergetic assessments remotely and then mail you out specific remedies. So that's always great because even in Atlanta, patients that are an hour or 2 hours away, it could be a whole day to get into the office. So we said, send in a sample, we can test you remotely, send you the remedies, and get you on your way. But yeah, looking for mold is very important. I had a case recently who came down with rheumatoid arthritis. I thought it was going to be Lyme, but what came up is mold. She had moved to Georgia from Arizona and didn't know too much about that. So we talked a lot about dehumidifiers and air purifiers and ripping out carpet. So I'm just kind of trying to investigate what could be the toxic burden. And then her arthritis symptoms did drastically improve once we figured that out.
Fantastic. Good job. And I'm curious, is there, you've not piqued my personal curiosity, is there a specific air purifier that you recommend for people?
Not necessarily. We have like a clean air guy that I'll send out to their houses, and I just have 2 or 3 in my house right now. So yeah, he's helped me with my house as well. Unfortunately, I have a basement that's non-daylight, had carpets, and ripped that out, got a dehumidifier and air purifiers, and ran some ozone and cleaned the air ducts and did all the things. But I feel like taking care of our house is just like our bodies. We can't give up on them. It's a constant thing. So I don't necessarily have a air purifier suggestion, but I think just having one is important, especially with pets and just cleaning out the air. But yeah, so we can definitely test patients remotely, and in person we offer the thermography, a urinalysis, and then we have therapies like ozone, saunas, lymphatic drainage therapies, foot baths, acupuncture,
All the fun stuff, in my
all the
opinion.
fun stuff.
That really makes a difference, right? Again, people are like, what, how did you get better? And I'm like, all of those things that you just mentioned were part of my treatment, right? And figuring out how to navigate through it myself. Like, I really wish that I had had an expert more to lean on like you, that you could be like, okay, try this, try that, instead of me just doing my own research, like trying to figure out different things and piece it together myself, because that probably would have saved me a lot of time, energy, and financial resources, because we're not kidding when we say, unfortunately, this is a really expensive thing to manage and treat sometimes. And when you're just throwing darts at the board and hoping something sticks, like it would be, again, a lot more succinct to have guidance from somebody like you who could see literally what's going on in the body and what's going to be our best bet moving forward instead of just blindly fumbling for different options. I'm glad for what I've learned and the different things that I've experienced, but I'm sure that there is a more like defined path that people can go. And again, you're a really good resource for that kind of thing specifically. Do you treat people? So I think you kind of touched on it maybe, but you're not just specific to Lyme, like you work with people who have all types of chronic illnesses going on.
Yes, so I might see 8 patients a day with all different types of symptoms and how they found us. Lots of rashes, eczema, chronic gastro issues, chronic fatigue, brain fog, and every person may have a different paradigm of toxicity. So, it depends on their diet and their lifestyle, and their vaccine history and their genetics. And so we're not just treating Lyme, but a lot of chronic health issues ends up just being from Lyme disease. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're making me think about this, but do you think that people actually have a specific diagnosis or that it is truly just like, I keep thinking of the thought, like we're just living, breathing organisms, right? And we do have stuff coming in and out of the body all the time. Rather than maybe having an identity rooted in a sickness, could it just be truly that people are too toxic and it just manifests itself differently? Like the root cause is ultimately toxicity, not a specific illness. Does that make sense?
That's what I believe. I believe if we can find the toxic burden and eliminate it and reduce other toxic exposures, then the body can heal from most diseases. And
Yeah.
we can prevent most diseases. Like, we've heard maybe Alzheimer's could be due to toxic metals. So if we lower the toxic metal burden, that can prevent Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So that's my goal, is to prevent disease, not necessarily diagnose, but also see what the toxins are that could cause those diseases.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I really appreciate the type of medicine that we both believe in because it's preventative care, right? Like, unfortunately, things will go awry and then people will come to see us, but we could prevent a lot of that just through our own lifestyle and choices that we make prior to that moment in time. But sometimes people have to get to that bottom of the barrel before they're able to say, I need to make different choices for my life. That's part of the whole soul's evolution.
For
But
example, the gallbladder, it's one of the most common surgeries. Thousands of gallbladders are taken out every day. I had a
yeah,
case yesterday and I kept getting gallbladder indicators. We talked about how the gallbladder doesn't like a lot of bad fats, avoid a lot of fried foods. I gave him some enzymes to support the gallbladder and gave him some clues if he was having a gallbladder issue so that he didn't end up in the emergency room with his gallbladder out. So that would
yeah,
be a way that I would use preventative medicines. Which organs are testing weak so that we can support them to prevent the disease.
yep, yep. And I again appreciate that so much more than reactionary medicine. And it's like, oh, we're just gonna cut this out of you and you don't really need that. Well, it's like if we didn't really need that, we wouldn't be born with it, in my opinion. There is a reason that we have things in our body. And granted, we can survive without them, but life becomes a little bit more hard then because now we've got less equipment to process these toxins and we're still getting exposed to just as many. And it's even harder then of a battle for the body to be able to cope with things. So another question I think I get asked frequently is how are we even exposed to things like heavy metals? Like I'm not doing anything with metal. How am I getting metal into my body?
Well, there is metals in the soil. Metals settle. There's metals in food. There could be lead in a potato, and there can be arsenic in an apple, and there can be toxic metals that come from pollution. Like I've heard there could be lead in your lipstick. We get aluminum from our deodorants. If you take a lot of Tums and acids, they have aluminum. Our cookware is a big one. I got rid of my teapot recently because I felt like there was enamel in the inside, and I was actually testing different water sources, and it tested contaminated. So I got a glass electric tea kettle just to prevent that. So looking into all of our cookware is a big one because if something's heated, then that can, the Teflons, things like that. Where else? Cadmium from batteries. I think a lot of the young people are vaping.
Yeah.
and I'll find cadmium and have to have a discussion about that. And I don't know, it's kind of my theory if that's where it comes from, a heated battery that's ingesting these toxic chemicals into and metals into the lungs. And then we talked a little bit earlier about silver fillings, which are 50% mercury. They don't put them in anymore usually, but they're not taught in dental school that mercury is toxic, even though when you're pregnant, you can't even eat a can of tuna fish. So people on a Lyme journey, it's definitely important to see a biological dentist to get their teeth assessed.
Yes, I had made a post about that one time and people were like, what the heck is a biological dentist? And I'm like, well, you should look into it and the whole danger of root canals for people specifically with Lyme and really how that can be detrimental to the whole healing process. And people again don't necessarily understand that kind of thing, but through our kind of discussions and hopefully other people are talking about this stuff on the planet, it's raising awareness and changing that thought path and helping them to understand differently. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, we had mercury thermometers to take
Mm-hmm.
our temperature, and one dropped one time on the floor and exploded. And my mom was like, "Don't touch it, it's got mercury." Like she knew that it was poisonous, right? But I kind of am just blown away by the statement that they're not really trained in dental school that mercury is bad. And I'm thinking about the poor dentist who's being exposed to that over and over again too, like putting it into people's mouths. And
Yeah. So I see an integrative or a biological dentist. Just last time I had a little cavity, she used ozone and she used a laser to, I didn't even have any Novocaine. Somehow she used a laser. So that was neat. So I think that's good. But they also take extra precaution when they're removing your mercury filling so that you don't get sicker and they don't get sick. So that's always a good idea. I had a case come see me for acupuncture who had hip arthritis, and she had seen a chiropractor, a physical therapist, orthopedic. I was kind of her last step, and we didn't really get a lot of good results with the acupuncture. And according to my tooth acupuncture meridian chart, she had a silver filling that connects with the hip. And it even said possible hip arthritis. So I sent her to a dentist and she actually got better by getting that silver filling out.
wow.
That was,
Wow.
that was a neat case.
That's really fantastic. I mean, I hope people are listening, and if they're not a believer in this, they're becoming one because obviously, like you've got a lot of evidence to support the thoughts of what you have and what you share with the world. And it's a beautiful thing when we can live in true health and abundance, right? Like I always think about God didn't make us to be sick individuals. He made us to have true joy, happiness, abundance, prosperity in our lives. And it's all these other things that we're exposed to, hence man-made product a lot of times that drags our vibration down and puts us into a sick space. And we can grab onto that identity and choose to stay there, or we can say there's some alternatives. There's things that God has given us, like plants, natural products that are found growing freely on this earth that are there to support us and to help us. And if we're open to it and we're willing to try things, whether it sounds a little bit goofy to people, like, oh, silver filling coming out is going to help that. Yeah, right. What's the harm in trying it? You have nothing to lose by saying, all right, well, maybe she's a little bit crazy for suggesting that, but I'm going to go with it and I'm going to see. And you might be really shocked and pleasantly surprised by the results because, um, again, what do you have to lose? Like, you're just gonna, some people unfortunately accept that that's their life, and the doctor says, no, this is how you're supposed to feel at your age, or no, this is how your life is going to go on. And they say, okay, I believe you, doctor, you know everything. But again, doctors don't know everything. They're not God, and there are other ways around things and more than one way to skin a cat. And I just really am grateful to my exposure to what you teach and practice. Um,
I think growing
sometimes,
up, I don't remember doctors really looking for toxins. You might get
sure.
an antibiotic for strep throat, but you go in for high blood pressure. They're not looking at things like heavy metals, and things are changing. I feel like with functional medicine really blowing up, people are really digging for toxic burdens. I feel like naturopaths were kind of pioneers with this. We're always looking for the viral load, the bacterial load, the yeast load, candida, things like that. So now it's actually amazing because now, some medical doctors are saying they're fed up. I've heard a lot of doctors tell me, ever since they were forced to get vaccinated, things like that, they decided to go down the functional route. A lot of those labs can be really expensive, but can give us really good clues what the toxic burdens are. So we like to use the bioenergetics, or muscle testing or autonomic nervous response testing. And then, that can be very affordable so that we can really spend the money on the remedies that'll get you well.
Yep. And again, you're just making me think about the value of getting to the root cause of a problem, right? Not just band-aiding it, not just slapping 50 pharmaceutical prescriptions onto someone for the rest of their life and say, here you go. And I can speak from some personal experience. Unfortunately, someone that I'm close to, I feel has been over medicated and has a lot of subsequent health problems, unfortunately. But that person believes very much in the traditional Western medicine dialogue and here's your pill, it's going to fix you. And it's like, no, it's not. There's a reason that problem exists in the first place. And let's really examine the body and understand what's going on and figure out a better course of action forward versus putting more toxins into your system, because that's truly what, unfortunately, a lot of the pharmaceuticals are. There's certain ones I think that are beneficial, but a lot of them, when you show it, like say with ashwagandha, for example, if you're looking at that as a means to help with anxiety versus some of the prescribed medications, they actually show better outcomes with ashwagandha than they do with the prescription. But a lot of times this is missed by mainstream. This isn't something that's actually taught or given. And it's like ashwagandha also has a whole other slew of benefits, like helping to regulate the sleep-wake cycle. It helps with virility or potency. That's another one where I've seen it's actually been more effective than Viagra in men taking
Yeah.
ashwagandha. And it's like that's just one herb, right? Like there's so many
Yeah.
out there that are available to help the body to have
Herbs
better
are amazing and they
function.
actually have nutrition too. Like
Hmm.
chamomile has magnesium, which kind of makes sense that it's calming. Or
Yes.
echinacea actually naturally has zinc in it. So that's a different way to think about it. And then in Chinese medicine, I studied over 400 different single herbs, and every herb would affect a different organ or several organs. So like cordyceps mushrooms, affects the lungs and the kidneys, and they have a lot of different properties besides just being antimicrobial. So they can be calming or energizing, promote good sleep. So herbs are amazingly powerful. And many of them do have amazing antimicrobial effects against Lyme spirochetes. I mentioned earlier, cat's claw was one of the first I used. I like to use martalorin. I like to use cryptolepis. I like
Yeah.
to use olive leaf. Um, I like to use, what are some other good ones? Berberine. So there's
Yep.
lots of amazing antibacterial herbs, but then those can be strong. So then we also want to support the liver, the kidneys, the lymph, so that you're not always detoxing.
Yep. And so that's also like I love that you're bringing that up, but I think then when we're starting to get into this space and we're like, "Ooh, these herbs are so great." Like, how do you know which ones to take? How do you not take too many? Because that can happen to me. I'm like, "Ooh, I just learned about this. I'm gonna add it in." And then it's like, now I'm taking a quadrillion things and I'm like, do I really need all of this? But I can see the benefit of all of them. How do you taper that with like the right fit for people?
Yeah, I'm sensitive to pocketbooks, number one. And then I'm also sensitive to how many supplements someone should take in a day. Personally, I'm not a fan of taking more than seven or so supplements a day. That can be exhausting to take pills all day long. So I can assess the body, and if the adrenals are the priority, if say Lyme spirochetes are the priority, say the gut is the priority, I might say, okay, we're going to use a homeopathic, an herbal, a drainage remedy, some adrenal support herbs like ashwagandha, and then start there. And then the next visit do some tweaking. So I can assess, where are the priorities. But while supplements are great, I don't think we're supposed to take so many in one day, because I think that can confuse the body. I think and that can be why it's good to see someone like a naturopath to kind of guide you on what supplements to take. There's so many out there, and the supplement industry is really blowing up. But really, I think it's, where does the immune system stress lie? Which organs have the most stress? What are the priorities for detox to determine what supplements to take? And sometimes different herbs, people can have what's called a healing crisis or Herxheimer reaction when you start to detox. And oftentimes the healing crisis will be your chief complaint. So if you get headaches, you might start to get a little bit more headaches. Or if you have diarrhea, you might get some more diarrhea. And so then I don't want that to happen. So my goal is always to have very little healing crisis, and encourage the patient to drink water and take immune support and go really, really slow. So our team really kind of guides each patient through their individual approach. We like to give them a lot of hand holding, a lot of emails and texts and follow-ups, because we don't want them to quit. Just because you get more headaches doesn't mean that you can't get well. It means that your body is struggling with healing and needs some extra support.
Yeah. And I think that can be a deterrent sometimes for people is that they start to go through things and start to feel a little bit worse. And it's like, no, don't panic. That's actually probably a good thing in a sense. Like your body's reacting and it's saying like, okay, this is maybe helping me, but it's just going to take a little bit more time or a little bit extra support or um, attention to the detox process and opening up the detox pathways and making sure the body is actually able to eliminate things. And that's also making me think about another thing. Do you look for the MTHFR genetic mutation? Is that something that you work
Yes,
with? Or...
when I assess the body, I have clues for MTHFR. I can order some blood tests, and then also I look to see if they have a B12 or folate deficiency. And if they do, then I'll make sure to give them some methylated support. And then we'll go slow with that in case somebody has a reaction to B vitamins. Some people get anxious when they take them. And
Okay.
so kind of assessing the person. If they have a lot of anxiety, I might not start with B vitamins,
Okay.
but we can test for MTHFR, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you're listening and you're like, what is that? We all have a very X-rated name for that genetic mutation, the mother mutation, if you will. I try not to curse on my show, but that makes it really difficult for people to detox on their own because their body's not able to methylate properly. And it is something that I find of value to understand if that is going on in your system, just because, again, some supplements react differently if we have this mutation. And you could be putting things in your body that are actually making it harder for you to heal. So it's just another thing to cross off your list and making sure that you understand it's functioning properly or not in your
Now, if
system.
somebody has a double mutation of MTHFR and they don't process synthetic B vitamins well, it could explain a lot of gluten sensitivities because of the folic acid added to the grains. They kind of stripped the bread of the good stuff and added the synthetic vitamins, which sounds like a good thing. But if you have difficulty breaking that down, then the gluten becomes toxic to you. So you want to eat organic foods that don't have the added, if you look at the back of the cereal box, all the added B vitamins, if you have an issue with MTHFR, those synthetic vitamins are going to make you sick.
Huh, that's interesting. Thank you for teaching me that.
Yeah.
Again, we learn as we go, and I think a topic that's been coming up a lot more too is alpha gal. You're making me think about that with the allergies. Do you see a lot of cases of alpha gal? And I think for people, if you're not understanding what that is an allergy specific to mammal products, the protein or sugar in mammal products. And I know in Nantucket right now they're going through a lot of cases with that, but sometimes we use mammal products in even pharmaceuticals and people aren't aware of that. And then they're taking it and having anaphylactic shock or reactions to that because of the alpha gal allergy. But again, are you starting to see more of that in your practice? Is that something that you're able to
I have
look
been.
at?
I put it under my what I call spirochete menu. So on every visit, I test for the same things: alpha gal, babesia, Borrelia, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, anaplasma, Ehrlichia, Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus. And so if alpha gal comes out, I actually make homeopathic nosode against it. And so homeopathic nosodes are the theory of like treats like. So say we're working on mercury, we would have a diluted form of mercury that you would take and your body would eliminate that toxin. So I can do that with alpha gal, and I can do a laser detox treatment. And I have had good success, have them avoid the beef, pork, and lamb for about 30 days. So that is something that I look for, and it comes from an allergy to Lone Star tick, and that's not fun for a patient. So it's definitely good to find out if you have, and if you have a lot of gastro issues, it could be alpha gal.
Yeah. And, again, it's like once I got my diagnosis and I started to change my nutritional intake plan, like meat became more of a staple for me because I was trying to avoid sugar and dairy and gluten. And just so like your world becomes more narrow in terms of what you can eat, especially when you're like relearning. Now it's like I eat so many different things because I know how to prepare foods differently and take care of myself, but I had to relearn how to do all of that. But then I was like, man, if you got that on top of it, and Elizabeth, like that would just be more than you could process because I was really eating a fair amount of meat back then. My heart goes out to people specifically, like all of us who go through any kind of chronic illness. But that thought of getting that was like, oh no. And I've not heard of too many people in this area. So I'm in Pennsylvania. I've been coming across more people who have been contracting it, unfortunately, but I don't know too many people who really had it and then healed from it. Like I'm not, it's just not around here. We have more of like Bartonella or Babesia or ehrlichiosis with Lyme, and Anaplasma or alpha-gal is just sort of coming onto the scene around here. So I'm glad to hear that there is hope for those people who are going through that as well in terms of healing, because as you've stated before, it's like the body can heal from everything. It's just a matter of getting it the right support and paying attention to the body. So like if the body's yelling at you and telling you that there's something wrong, don't ignore that for 50 years and expect in the end that you're going to be able to make this miraculous recovery. It's possible, but it's a lot harder. Like it's really important to be in touch with yourself and listen and know when
Yeah.
you need to do something differently.
And different Lyme infections tend to target different tissues, and I'm not 100% sure why. It seems like Borrelia likes the knees, the Lyme likes the connective tissues, which is why it's hard to diagnose in the blood. It invades the blood system. And Bartonella loves the feet for some reason, heel pain. So if you have chronic heel pain, you might want to investigate if you have Bartonella, unexplained heel pain, or a lot of brain fog and anxiety. Oftentimes it's babesia. So sometimes I can almost guess what toxins are going to come up based on the symptoms, but I'm wrong. Sometimes the body, everyone's unique. So I think that when it comes to chronic Lyme disease, it's a good idea to target the pathogens, support the immune system, change your diet and lifestyle, and use supported therapies. And then I believe you can get well. I have cases every day that get well. I think your listeners should really believe that. And I had one, she came in about 4 times last year with her mom and sister. She was diagnosed with arthritis and she was on a few meds and she kept getting better. And the last time I saw her, she was only on one steroid she was taking about every 6 weeks. And I tested her clear of Lyme. So I said, we're going to follow up in 3 months. We had a party around the office and all of her symptoms were at a 0. So that was a really exciting case because she told me if she wasn't better in 1 year, she wasn't going to come back and see me. So I was happy. She was happy. It took exactly 1 year. So she had to be patient.
Well, and in the grand scheme of life, that's nothing, right? We think about how quickly a year can go by. And I always say to people, time's going to go by, whether we're being proactive with our health or we're not. And wouldn't you rather put that energy and effort towards getting better so that in that year's time you can see improvements versus just doing nothing about it and accepting it as being the norm for yourself?
It's good to
Uh,
focus on the positive. It's hard to remember. If you have a symptom that's so severe, it's hard to remember the other things that got better. Oh, vertigo is better. Oh, I am having regular bowel movements. Or, oh, my headaches are better if you still have severe brain fog. But it is good to take the time to focus on the positive because the Lyme journey can be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Every time you think you're getting better, you could have a setback. And sometimes the setbacks are due to trauma, loss of a loved one, something like a car accident, a traumatic event. So working on the adrenals, that affects the immune system because that fight or flight affects detoxify. So that's why working on stress can be important and part of the journey when you have a step back, the emotional component.
yes, for sure. And then in terms of like duration of heal time, because that's another thing I think in our society today, we've been trained that everything can be like on demand, right? Like we've got Amazon same day delivery. We've got things that you can just buy and have immediate access to on your phone. It's just such a faster pace than what we have traditionally been exposed to in past generations. And I think then when we look at healing, we're like, I want an immediate fix. Really, is there a standard time for people to anticipate that it takes to heal? Or is that something that's in correlation to how long they were sick versus how long it takes to get better?
It's all of the above. I typically tell my patients, give me about 4 months and you will turn the corner. So we do a symptom profile, and by about 4 months, a lot of their symptoms have improved, but it could take up to a year to resolve the infections, to really feel healed from Lyme. And then we want to keep an eye on it. Like I said, some of those traumatic events, I've had patients I don't see for years, and they'll come back and say, I think my Lyme is back. And I'm like, okay, let's find out, what happened, what's going on. Maybe it was COVID or a vaccine stress that could bring it back. So it's just one of the toxins we're exposed to in the environment. Like we talked about the metals, we talked about mold and viruses that we want to make sure we keep that burden down, keep that toxic load down. And then also we want to avoid insect bites. So even if I get bit by a mosquito, I'll put like some silver gel on it or essential oils, because, one mosquito is one thing, but if I'm out in nature all weekend, get 10, 12 mosquitoes, I don't want to get Lyme from that. So I want to be proactive with that. Maybe take some extra immune support if I get any bug bites. A little controversial, but I think we can get Lyme from fleas, from mosquitoes, from spiders, insect bites. I don't know at this point if it's in the food. Insects land on our fruits and vegetables. So
yeah,
we have to live in this world, but we also want to do the right things if we do to support our immune system.
That's right, because wearing a bubble suit isn't really practical. I've thought about it, but it sort of doesn't go well with my outfits many times. So
I recently did a parasite cleanse, and I'm never eating sushi again. There's sushi, raw fish is a way to get parasites. So be cool with that.
Yep. And it's funny that you're bringing up about the mosquitoes, because they had just released an article that was discussing that they do not spread Lyme. And I was like, interesting, because I've always been trained that any biting insect can technically spread it. And so I was like, oh, okay. But it was only really one source. And I tried to find it in my last episode, and I think I've actually found it. I've got too many sources.
I don't believe that. I mean, babesia is very similar to malaria, which comes from mosquitoes.
Okay. Okay. So this came out from the Global Lyme Alliance. They say why you can cross mosquitoes off your Lyme disease worry list. And it says a new study finds no evidence that mosquitoes can transmit Borrelia burgdorferi, the bacterium that causes Lyme disease. This study reinforces that ticks are the only proven source of infection. And it just goes through talking about that. And I was like, again, interesting.
I mean, I don't believe that. We get all kinds of things from insects. Dogs get tapeworms from a flea.
Yeah.
We get Bartonella from fleas. So why not mosquitoes? I think these studies are hard. It's like they'd have to say this mosquito has Borrelia. You do not have Borrelia. You get bit by the mosquito and then retest you. So I'll have to look into that study more. But I've seen enough, clinical evidence that insect bites, spider bites, I've definitely seen. I even had a case where she got a bunch of ants attack her, and I found Lyme. So I think
I had a friend who got a wasp sting, and that's where he supposedly contracted it from.
I believe it.
Yeah. And that one stuck with me. I was like, oh God, like I just don't, again, back to the bubble suit.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be bit by anything. Because I don't want
you get bit, you get bit and you start to feel bad, that might be the time for antibiotics or herbs and natural remedies that are antibacterial.
Yeah. And then do you think prophylactically that you can taking herbs would help avoid getting sick in the first place?
Yes. So if we're thinking about, something like COVID, I would take elderberry, lysine, and monolaurin. Got a formula called Viracid by Orthomolecular. If you start to get sick, you take every 2 hours up to 12 a day for 2 days, and that'll usually make you not get sick. I think just taking good antioxidants is always good to fight oxidative stress. So things like mushrooms are wonderful to support your immune system. There's a lot of really cool mushrooms out there now, coffees and things like that. I have a mushroom powder called microshrooms I like to put in my protein shakes. That would be a really good way to support your immune system to prevent Lyme.
Okay, thanks. That's something else that I've been telling people is like, yes, you can prophylactically help yourself by taking these things, and it's just gonna ultimately serve your body better in the long run. I'm curious too, are there a lot of other naturopaths in the country using the tools that you're using to help people? Do you know?
Yes, I know. I used a machine called the Quest 4. I'm about to go to a conference where there's 100 practitioners that'll be there. So yeah, I think that the bioenergetic technologies are really gaining popularity. And then, like I said before, functional medicine, where they're really digging for, using better blood test or stool test or saliva test or hair test to look for the toxins.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad to hear that that's as big of a pool. I was thinking maybe 10, but to hear that there's at least like 100 that are going to a conference, that's really exciting because we definitely need as many feet on the street as we can with this type of technology. And it's to me, it's like, oh, that makes so much good sense. And I'm like really intrigued and I'm curious. So how would people be able to work with you if they were interested in doing this? If I'm me and I'm like, ooh, Dr. Honican, how do I get a hair sample to you? Is there like a long wait list or what does that really look like?
So we're called Longevity Health Center. So our website's longevityhealthcenter.com, and definitely get in with us. We have cancellations every day. To do the remote testing, there's a link that says remote test on our website that gives the instructions to mail in the hair. Typically for new patients, we do like you to call so we kind of get to know who you are and speak to a new patient coordinator. And that can kind of guide us of which practitioner should work with. For example, we have a pediatric practitioner and a hormone specialist and a chronic Lyme and mold. One of my practitioners works with the highly sensitive individuals who are going to react to everything. So has that down pat. And then we have a list of some that are coming in each week. And, I might have a cancellation tomorrow and I can get one in. So usually it's not a long wait at all. And then we email you the results, call with the results, and then we can ship you out what you need. So absolutely, you can find us online. We'd love to work with you and help you on your journey. If you know you have Lyme or if you're just curious about what toxins you have, then we can definitely help.
Yeah, because again, my mind is always like, when like I feel great, but I'm like, I'm sure that the body can still use some tweakings. Or I think too, as we go through different phases of life, and this is more from an Ayurvedic lens as well, but we're in different needs of support and we have different needs. So like when we're little versus when we're middle age versus when we're in our Vata stage of life in the older age, support looks different for each phase of life. And really how are we making those adjustments adequately and making sure that we're still serving the body in the best capacity possible.
Each phase of life in every season, like the spring is the season of the liver, so it's a good time to do a liver cleanse. So our phases, our seasons, what we have going on emotionally. So I like, if someone's really sick, I'll see them every 2 or 3 months. And then once they're well, maybe twice a year is a good idea because we do get exposed to the toxins again. We aren't in the bubble. And usually once someone is better, then they can get better quicker the next time. So like if someone does have a relapse and say it took them a year the first time, I'll say, give me 6 weeks and you'll get better again. Your body then kind of understands what to do, has that memory. So even if there's a relapse, I think that you can get better pretty quickly.
Which is a beautiful thought. And I appreciate you calling that out because I've thought about that too. Like, what if I were to get sick again? Or what if it's like, stop it right now. You have so many more tools. Your body already has been through this. You would, first of all, acknowledge what was going on to your body much faster because now you know what that's like and what that feels like. And secondly, like you have again so many more tools in your kit that you can really make an impact on yourself much faster. And so I really try not to live in the space of fear, but it is, of course, a thought because when you are exposed to Lyme, unfortunately, you can get exposed to it again. That's another
Yes.
question that I get asked a lot. It's like, well, you already have it. What are you worried about? And it's like, well, in theory, there's probably like 300 types of Lyme across the globe. And in the United States, we have at least 100. And so, yes, you can contract a different strain. You can contract a different co-infection or something
And
else.
I've heard Pennsylvania is number one. I don't know why. I'm sorry.
And I really have thought about, especially recently, I was like, I think I need to move. Like, it's time for me to go. And my parents just don't understand. And the cold here doesn't serve me at all. I have some Raynaud's syndrome, which is something that I'm still trying to figure out and get rid of. But the minute it gets cold here, I'm just a much grouchier person. I can't
Yes.
stand it. And it's physical pain on my body. And then I think about like, I take precautions when I go outside, but I'm a little bit nervous about being out there. I walk my dog. We really generally just go on the sidewalk. And even at the beginning of the season, there was a tick questing on the edge of the sidewalk.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Right. And I was like they're
Yeah.
everywhere. They're
PTSD.
everywhere here. And there's so many deer, which is part of the the problem. It's not the deer's fault specifically, but they're just a taxi for the tick, and it's sad that they get labeled as being the spreader of it. And it's like, no, it's actually the little white-footed mice and the rodent problem that we have that's probably more lending to ticks getting Lyme in the first place. But now ticks are just being born with Lyme. They're not even having to feed on a blood host to get the illness. And so it's just morphing and evolving. And yes, many times I'm like, I think I need to go live in the desert. I think I
Do you have a sauna?
I go for infrared sauna, not too
Nice.
far from here. So the gym is like 2 minutes, and then right next door to that is the place with the infrared sauna, although I've been contemplating buying one for myself. What I do have is a hot yoga dome. So I
Oh,
have
nice.
this blow up hot yoga dome in my downstairs that I practice, 3 or 4 or 5 times a week in, and I love the heat. So
Wonderful. I know in my acupuncture rooms, I have a biomat, which is a far infrared mat with amethyst and negative ions. And it's all my patients fall asleep when they get acupuncture because they get those, healing vibrations. So those are really cool biomats.
yeah, I was looking at an infrared sauna that actually has a biomat in it, and it's got crystal
Mm.
light. And I was like, ooh, maybe this is the one that I want. And I was like, I don't know, that might be difficult to clean the sweat out of. So that's how my brain thinks about things.
I know you'd have to put down like a pad.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. That's cool.
Yeah. And then how, like, do you use grounding mats? Is that something that you believe in?
I do have a mat that has the PEMF technology, which is grounding. So yes, absolutely. I do believe that. And I have a lot of patients that tell me they'll buy something, a grounding pillow, grounding blanket that they feel better with. So for sure.
Now, does that have to be on direct skin contact, or it's okay to go through clothing?
It's okay to go through clothing.
Right. Because
The,
something
the
I
red light can only go through for white if you have a red light mat, but the grounding should be able to go through clothing.
All right, thanks. Because I read something that was like, you can only do it if you have direct skin contact. And I was like, this is not really practical. I was sitting on it when I'm working at my desk and stuff. And I'm like, I can't really sit here without clothes on my body because I unfortunately do a lot of like face calls.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess from the bottom half down, it could be if I want to sit on it that way. But I was like, this is ridiculous. Or just putting my feet on it. Um, so I'll get my mat back out and sit on it in my clothes again. I figure it's not doing any harm. If I'm doing it, it might not be as beneficial. I don't know,
I'll let
but
you know if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure because when we get earth vibrations just walking around, in our houses. So I would think that we'd be able to get the grounding frequencies with clothes on.
yeah. And so I know we've gone over a lot and you've given a lot of insight and wisdom, but are there any final thoughts that you would have for somebody experiencing chronic illness that could really make or break things for them? Because a lot of times my listeners are also asking, how do you heal? And again, we've kind of covered, it's not just one specific thing. Typically, it's just really understanding the root cause and formulating a plan from that perspective. But are there any words of advice that you have for someone going through this?
Yeah, I think it's a really great idea to see a naturopath. The naturopaths really study natural remedies, herbs and homeopathics and therapies, and can really help find the root cause, guide you to heal with little healing crisis. And that if you can get the answers, that your body does have the capacity to heal. I see it every day, really, really tough cases. So I think that there's hope for all your listeners. And just thank you for putting this podcast together to encourage your listeners to seek out alternative sources, which are becoming more mainstream, thankfully. And yeah, so just thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. I would love to pick your brain even more. And I'm like, okay, let's yank out a hair sample and get that going.
Yes.
Um, just a final thought too. Are there specific accreditations that someone should look for if they are seeking out a naturopath? It's like I know
Um,
in the medical community, we would say to probably look for an ILADS trained provider. Is there something specific with a naturopath that would help to indicate one might be a better fit than another?
Well, that's a tough question because, like I said, in Georgia, we can't get licensed as a naturopath. So in other states, I'm not sure about Pennsylvania. You can in Arizona. They go through, pretty intense school. So I think, just really looking at the website, calling, talking to somebody, seeing how long that they've been in practice, to get that clinical experience. So in Georgia, what we do is we do all the classes online or through different books, and then we get a certification. So we're certified traditional naturopaths. So I think, if they've gone through a program and they've been certified and they've been practicing for a while, that they should really be able to help you.
All right, cool. Thanks. And sorry, do you work with people outside of the United States? So I have a lot of listeners overseas. Or is that something that you can help people with?
We do. The tricky part is being able to ship the remedies, and the tailorized remedies can be a challenge, but we do now and again.
Okay, thank you. And truly, thank you for all you do for this community, because it is really important for people to be seen and heard and validated and know that it's not just something in their head, that they're not crazy, that there is an answer to unanswered health challenges that they may be experiencing. And I know firsthand how bleak and dark and lonely that can be, and what a like a I don't want to say mind F. Like, I try not to curse here, but like, that's really what it was. I try to think of another word for that, but it was total mind F for me. And I became embarrassed and ashamed of myself because I felt so horrible every day, but doctors told me that there was nothing wrong with me for so long. I turned to alcohol. I drank entirely too much, and it was really a bad space to exist in. And if I had found someone like you who believed that it wasn't like there wasn't something like it wasn't in my head, right? It lived in my head. I know exactly where in my brain I could feel whatever the heck was in there too. It was back here in this quadrant of my head. But um, it's really important again that there are advocates for people like me that have gone through this, that can no longer feel like a crazy person, because that really did make me feel like a crazy person. And I felt that God just made me systemically broken, and that was going to be what my life was. And I was very close to ending my life because I just didn't want to be there anymore. So, what you do is very impactful and beneficial and wonderful. And just, I wish I could give you a hug right now. It's like, just keep going. Not that you're doubting your skills and feeling it, but just also for you to be seen and validated in what you do provide to people, and the wealth of information that you have. And just thank you for
Well,
that.
thank you for saying that. And I'm glad that you are on your road to healing, and you're feeling so much better. It was so great talking to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Honican. I really appreciate you. Take
Bye.
care.